Friday Night SmackDown, WWE had an insane night of action, and that was capped off with the draft returning. And I was hooting and hollering at some of the various picks and all the scouting that I had did to really fill out my mock draft. And I couldn't believe some of the reaches and the value and some of the outlooks for the brand with the new talent acquired. I even sometimes was saying, "Honey, you're not going to believe this. Cedric Alexander and Shanti the Adonis are back on SmackDown. It's insane." It was just an incredible up and down. The OC was there. I mean, it was absolutely insane. The talent and the struggle that Nick Aldis and Adam Pearce had to go through just to put together these incredible drafts that they did. And I love seeing inside the Raw draft room, inside the SmackDown draft room, fist pumping when they got their guy and girl, and the disappointment in the other brand when they missed out on Braun Breaker and Kiana James. It was absolutely thrilling. And as you can see here, the amount of talent that is in the SmackDown portion of the pool just filled to the brim. Just absolute studs. So the first overall pick was Bianca Belair, which I really have no problem with. I think she should be pushed more, even though she's going to win the tag team titles with Jade against Kabuki Warriors. I do think that she should be pushed more overall. I think she's a star. She doesn't get enough love and attention, at least not for a while. So regardless of what you think of this whole draft process and everything like that, I do think that Bianca Belair makes sense as the 101. Now, I'm not really sure what scouting that Adam Pearce really saw in this one. He took Jey Uso 102, and Jey was already on Raw, and after putting out that garbage match at WrestleMania against Jimmy Uso, not really sure why he is the 102. A head scratcher there from Adam Pearce. The Raw War Room loved it, though. So good for them. Got their guy. Here's my question. Is that, shouldn't they have excluded the title challengers for the upcoming pay-per-view at Backlash? Because what happens if Jey Uso gets drafted to SmackDown and then he wins the world title? Does he just take it to SmackDown? Or does he get reverted back to Raw? That would help clarification, because if he just gets put back on Raw, why would you take him if you're Adam Pearce? That was also an issue I had with later draft picks. It just doesn't really make sense, but whatever. Jey Uso, terrible first round pick. Not sure what justification you can give me to make him a first round pick. Mid event Jey Uso going second overall here. Carmelo Hayes was the third overall pick to go into SmackDown. The losers from NXT, guys like Lexis King. It was really just him that made me laugh with his holes in his jeans and him being pumped up for Carmelo Hayes to be drafted. Sorry, Lexis, you're not getting drafted tonight. There's no way. NXT was pumped for their guy to get drafted. Happy for him. Yeah, good pickup for SmackDown, but it was just funny to me that the NXT guys were all around and cheering for him and giving him a big round of applause. And Seth Rollins, 104, already on Raw, so we only have one person jumping to a different brand in the first round. And I understand that if you were just the way WB does it, if you were just drafting, it would just be constant swapping back and forth. But there's got to be a better way to do this, because there was not many people who changed brands this night, and it was just not super exciting. There was maybe 2 or 3 that changed. There was not many. So yeah, Seth Rollins already on Raw. I thought they said something about if you're injured, you're excluded, but I guess not, because Rollins got picked. So that was the end of the first round, and like I said, really nothing noteworthy. Carmelo Hayes was the only guy that was coming up to from NXT to SmackDown. Everybody else was already on the same brand. Jey Uso, awful first round pick. So SmackDown wins the first round, I guess. I'm not really going to be covering the matches or anything that happened this night in between the draft. It's not really interesting stuff. The matches were nothing special, really. But then the second round, we had Michelle McCool and Tori Wilson making the picks for coming out of those respective war rooms and drafting for SmackDown and Raw. And, I know both of these women were deep into the film study and into the weeds regarding these picks. Michelle McCool and probably didn't sleep many hours the last few nights, really studying tape and making sure that they had the right pick. I believe it's McCool for SmackDown and Tori Wilson for Raw. So I don't know if I trust Tori Wilson's scouting with the first round assessment of Jey Uso, but I guess we'll see this next round where we're at. The first pick of the second round was Randy Orton, so another guy who's already on SmackDown, staying on SmackDown. The second pick was Braun Breaker, Raw, and the draft room was absolutely fired up for this one. They got their guy. SmackDown was pissed. A real coup here by Adam Pearce and the gang at Raw, drafting away Braun Breaker after what seemed like months of trying to get him to sign, and eventually Nick Aldis signed him. This gave him that big signing bonus money, many promises. Spent a fortune on the guy, and then bang, just gets drafted on Raw. Gets drafted on Raw during the draft. What can you do, man? Hilarity. Nick Aldis got cooked here. The third pick in the second round was Nia Jax for SmackDown. So this is actually the first main roster person who went from one brand to another. Nia Jax goes from Raw to SmackDown. SmackDown must have really loved. They must have saw that battle royal, saw some footage, some tape. Maybe they had some inside knowledge about some training Nia Jax has been doing, and they really love what they saw. And she's not like most girls, so that's maybe one of the reasons for that pick. And SmackDown, it gets Nia Jax, and she interfered in the women's title match, I think, or the number one contenders match, so already injecting her into that storyline. And then Raw finished up with Liv Morgan, and she's already on Raw. So again, Raw is really the only one shaking up right now. SmackDown kind of being similar, except they did get Nia Jax, so huge pickup there. And more fist pumping from the Raw War Room. They were pumped to retain the services of Liv Morgan. So yeah, it was Randy Orton to SmackDown, Braun Breaker to Raw, Nia Jax to SmackDown, Liv Morgan to Raw, and the draft keeps rolling on. Michelle McCool and Tori Wilson, excellent jobs scouting for this round. I'm sure they're quite pleased with the athletes they have acquired for this round. The following round, in the third round, we had the Dudleys announcing the picks, and it's pretty funny, or it's pretty. I'm sure there's actually no correlation that the more you shit on other companies and really just stroke the dick of WWE, the more screen time you get as a legend. So Bubba Ray and Devon came out to make these next picks, and the first pick in the third round was LA Knight, who was already on SmackDown, but they retained his services, so that is absolutely key. Raw War Room, again, absolutely pissed about this. That they were throwing stuff. They were incensed by the inability to acquire LA Knight, the megastar. I mean, absolutely pissed. So Nick Aldis got to feel good about that one. The second pick of the third round was Ricochet, who is already on Raw, but key decision here by Adam Pearce, really targeting the Speed Championship and really bringing that and wanting to bring that to Raw. So absolutely, was this a predetermined decision by Adam Pearce, or maybe during the draft, seeing how the board was falling, he countered and altered his strategy to really go after the Speed Championship. So interesting decision there from Adam Pearce. I think it's going to pay off with this new championship, really going to bring some eyeballs onto the division of cruiserweights or whatever they're going to do with that title. 303, the third pick of the third round, was the bloodline of Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, and Paul Heyman, who was already on SmackDown. And I didn't realize you could just draft people together. Like, I thought that you had to pick them all individually, but wouldn't you just want to pick the blood? Like, shouldn't they have gone higher, considering that's like a major thing to lull Roman into wanting to be on your show? Because I didn't even mention it at the top, but Roman Reigns declared himself ineligible, which I don't know why he can do that. I mean, could anybody do that? Like, you can just say, "Hey, no, I'm ineligible." Like, so I guess he can just do what he wants. But yeah, I didn't realize that you could just draft all these people together. I was kind of confused. I thought that Like, why would you not just want to pick them early on? That way, when Reigns comes back, he's obviously going to be involved with the bloodline. So if you're Raw, do you really want Ricochet over the bloodline? I mean, maybe that Speed Championship is going to be valuable down the road, but who knows? But Adam Pearce may be kicking himself over that selection. And then the 304, fourth pick of the third round was Sheamus, who I honestly can't tell you if he was on Raw or SmackDown. But let's say, for argument's sake, he was on SmackDown and got drafted to Raw. So huge pickup there. Too many limes. Huge pickup for Raw. I'm happy for them. Happy for Sheamus. Third round. I think, what? I'm putting my stamp on this. Sheamus in the third round is good value. This is a steal of a pick in round 3. Sheamus is going to provide lots of value for Raw overall. And so for that, I am saying good pick, Adam Pearce. I like the bloodline selection too, because why would you not take them? Because you're eventually going to get Roman Reigns back. This third round was filled with some pretty good value, I'd say. And at this time, it was telling me down below various people were available in the draft, like Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson. Is he Doc Gallows? The Good Brothers are still available, so be on the lookout for those guys potentially being drafted soon. But overall, good third round. I think the Raw and SmackDown draft teams really nailed this round. It was a solid choices from all around. And finally, sadly, that brings us to the last televised portion of the first night of the draft. But don't worry, I have the supplemental results. If you stick around, don't worry. I put in the work and stayed up and crunched the numbers, and so I got those for you. But to kick off the fourth round, I mean, I don't really know how this guy is competing for the WWE title at Backlash. Again, if Raw drafts him and he beats Cody, do they not get the WWE Championship? Anyway, AJ Styles is the first pick in the fourth round. So, I mean, what is he doing here in the fourth round? I mean, what? Kind of a head scratcher there. I have the same issue with this as I do with the Jey Uso thing. Like they should probably just be ineligible, right? If they win the titles, do they get to go to the other brand still, or do they stay on the brand and then thus not making them being drafted important at all? I'm thinking too much about it, but that's just my issue with it. I don't know why they're in the pool like that. I don't know, but yeah, weird that he was here all the way at the fourth round. I mean, sandwiched in between. I mean, you look at the rest of these picks in this round. The 402, you have Chad Gable and Alpha Academy, Maxine Otis, and Akira Tozawa already on Raw, but they are staying on Raw, probably going after the Intercontinental title. I do like selections where you get more people than just one. So, Adam Pearce missed out on the bloodline, but don't you worry, you got something just as good in Chad Gable and the Alpha Academy. So that was probably their backup plan if they missed out on the bloodline. So probably about as good as the bloodline. Not too much difference between Alpha Academy and the bloodline. Already on Raw, but yeah. The 403 was Andrade, who got picked to SmackDown, and I think he was on Raw. I again can't recall, but the Raw draft room in the fourth round could not believe their eyes that Andrade got selected. They were absolutely destroyed by this. They couldn't believe it. All the mock drafts that were out there from all the big corporations, Barstool Sports, ESPN, Fox, all of them did not have Andrade going in this spot. They thought they could wait for their guy, and they did not get him, sadly. Unfortunate for Adam Pearce here, but don't worry, they had a backup plan, and that backup plan is Kiana James. Oh my, what a pick. NXT legend. A true businesswoman. She wears glasses and has a briefcase. Wow. A true businesswoman headed to Raw. What a pick to follow up Andrade. I can't believe it. I didn't even say who was announcing these picks. I think it was Teddy Long and JBL. So surprised more tag teams weren't selected, and more guys in the shower that are being bullied like JBL used to do. But yeah, that was the fourth round. Weird round, honestly. You had Styles. Raw was weird. Raw took Alpha Academy and Kiana James. SmackDown definitely had the better fourth round. They took Styles and Andrade. I'm giving the edge to Nick Aldis and the boys and girls over there in the SmackDown War Room for this round for sure. I got to give it to them. And don't you worry, I got you covered. The supplemental part of the draft is here. SmackDown, they get Cedric Alexander and Ashanti the Adonis. Huge pickup for them. That's followed by Raw getting just as good of a selection in Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. Another great pick for them. And then we circle that back around to SmackDown, who gets Baron Corbin, is separated from Braun Breaker. Huge news coming out of the draft. They're separated. It's oh god, it's unbelievable. I can't believe it. Then Raw follows that up with Ivar drafted to Raw. Huge. I thought there were reports of him going to NXT. Anyway, great pick for Raw. The War Room, I'm sure, was thrilled for that. And then the final SmackDown pick. Can you believe it? They were announced on the ticker earlier. The OC of Luke Gallows, Carl Anderson, and Mishin. Yes, what a pick. What Mr. Irrelevant for SmackDown. What a pick. And Raw then gets Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark. And that is your first night of the SmackDown portion of the draft. There's going to be a lot more picks on Raw. And if you loved what you saw with very few superstars changing brands and 2 NXT draft picks, tune in for more on Monday Night Raw. Yeah, again, I don't really know what they could do to fix this format and how they do this. I think it's not good at all. It's so the draft logic doesn't make any sense. The picks don't make any sense. It's so goofy looking back at the into the different rooms, and they're like pumping their fists and getting thrilled for just things that they shouldn't be. It's just really funny, but I'm not sure how they could I'd have to think about it more. I'm not really sure how they could fix the weird issue of retaining their services. It's probably fine as it is. I mean, it's not like the draft is a huge event. They did push it as that, but in reality, it's really not that big of a deal. It's kind of just a thing to boost some ratings. So I'm sure it worked in that regard, but the actual product of what they put on screen was really not great. I'm sure the live, well, I don't know what the live crowd was really wanting. They didn't get much wrestling. There was a Cody and Carmelo Hayes match later on in the night, and there was Tiffany Stratton and Naomi match that got ruined by Nia Jax, the new SmackDown pick. But yeah, the show overall, it was fine. I just think that the draft is kind of weird because there's just a lot of logic gaps and things you can't really explain. But you know, it is what it is overall. It's not a huge deal for me. But yeah, don't worry. I'll run down the picks again just in case anybody overall. So for SmackDown, we got Bianca Belair, Carmelo Hayes, Randy Orton, Nia Jax, LA Knight, The Bloodline, AJ Styles, and Andrade. Not counting the supplemental picks because I don't feel like getting over this again because they obviously don't matter. Raw, we got Jey Uso, Seth Rollins, Braun Breaker, Liv Morgan, Ricochet, Sheamus, the Alpha Academy and Chad Gable, and Kiana James. And that is the breakdown of the first night of the draft. So we're going to be, I'm sure the film groups and the different people for Raw and SmackDown are going to be busy this weekend with some film studies, probably conducting some interviews, about who they're going to pick, do some analysis. So I'll be back for the follow-up of the second night of the draft, where I'm sure there's going to be more blockbuster trades and picks and news coming out of it. So stay tuned for that, sure.